The world of Marathon is pretty unforgiving. Everything wants to kill you, and you want to kill everything and steal their loot. So, I was kind of bragging on Twitter about how good I was at Marathon, and Bungie pretty much told me to back it up. They offered to sponsor a video if I were to go in and give you guys my 7 biggest tips going into the Marathon Alpha this week. And so, here we are. Here are my biggest tips that you should know going into the Marathon Alpha. Now keep in mind, this is an alpha. This is not the finished version of the game, so a lot of stuff is not going to look the same in a few months. So for instance, there's only a couple of maps in this build. You don't have access to all of the weapons, you don't have access to all the factions, you don't have access to the complete story, etc. There is a lot of stuff in this build, including the graphics, including the UI, all of that sort of stuff that are not finished. So you are going to run into bugs, and really just keep in mind that the alpha exists for 2 main reasons. The first is to get player feedback on mechanics like the core survival loop, as well as the overall gameplay of Marathon currently, and secondly, to stress test all of the technology on Bungie's side. So with that in mind, let's get into it. When you first load into the alpha, there's going to be a little tutorial. It's just going to say like open a couple loot boxes, open a door, exfil. I encourage you to pay attention as it kind of walks you through like what the world looks like and, you know, some of the very basic mechanics, but a lot is not explored yet, and that's what I really want to focus on in this video. So the first couple of tips I want to go over are what you should do before you ever load into a run of Marathon. My first tip is really understand the world. Marathon is an extraction shooter set within the crazy, mysterious world of Tau Ceti. Essentially, everything living on this world has disappeared, and it's your goal to try to piece together what happened here. And along the way, you get to scavenge a bunch of cool loot and use it to destroy a lot of things. And if you successfully exfil with all of this loot and all of these crazy materials, you can use them to upgrade your character as well as do even better on future runs. On these future runs, you'll be able to do even harder content and dig even deeper into the mysteries of Tau Ceti. That is the core gameplay experience of Marathon. This is a PvEvP game. When you load into a map, a bunch of other players are loaded in at the same time, but there are also threats that are already on the map. The UESC robots, for instance, will destroy your life. They will kill you so much faster than you think, and I guarantee most of the people watching this video, you are going to die almost immediately in your first run to these things. Do not underestimate them. They will kill you so fast. The AIs will kill you. Fall damage will kill you, other players will try to kill you, poison rooms will kill you, running through an empty field, believe it or not, that could also kill you in this game. Take your time, approach every encounter thoughtfully, and always be on your toes. I would recommend always playing behind cover, really getting an idea of what every POI looks like and how to maneuver best around the map to draw as little attention to yourself as possible. But even with all that scary stuff, there's also a huge reward when you take risks. The UESC, for instance, the higher level enemies that you kill, the more likely they are to drop very amazing loot. I've gotten room keys from these guys, which are like the sources of the best loot in the entire game. Also, if a robot is shooting you and you're like, hey, that kind of sounds like a sniper rifle, if you kill it, you can pick up that sniper rifle. They actually drop the weapons that they are using. So this is a great source of different ammo types, different weapon types, and a bunch of other loot, such as meds and equipment like grenades. So there is definitely a risk reward here where the higher level enemies, they will kill you even faster, but they can drop some pretty good loot. It's pretty much the same thing with enemy players as well. If you shoot someone and you see they have a purple shield and you only have a green, it can be pretty scary. That's a higher level of risk that you are taking trying to fight this individual. But if you manage to kill them, think about all of the loot they will have because of that purple shield. So it's kind of a huge game of risk reward that you are constantly playing in the Marathon universe. The more dangerous the risk, the higher the potential reward. Now for the second tip in this video, I want to talk about what you should load into a run with. The first thing you and your crew need to do is identify the goals of your next run. Are you wanting to go in just guns blazing to fight other people and steal their loot? If so, a character like Glitch or Locust might be for you. Do you want to be more stealthy and sneak around the world, looting things or completing contracts? well then a character like Blackbird or Void might be more your speed. Now, I went over all of these characters a little bit more in depth in this video that you can see here on screen. I'll also have that linked down below, but these are really important decisions to make before you plan your first couple of runs. Also, for your first few times playing, I would just focus on exfilling. Get some basic loot, exfil, get a feel for the game, learn the maps a little bit before you start getting a little bit more adventurous or aggressive. Now, as we just discussed, the world is very dangerous, and because of that, I would always load in with at least 10 patch kits, which is kind of like your health kits, and 10 shield charges. I would also make sure to have plenty of ammo. You are going to use way more ammo than you think you are going to need. So if you have 2 weapons, I would take at least a full stack of both ammo types, or if they use the same ammo type, have 2 ammo stacks of the same ammo type. I think that is super important in this world. You never want to run out of ammo or else you are absolutely screwed. And it might not also be a bad idea to have like a mech kit, which we'll go over here in a little bit, or some equipment. Grenades in this game are insanely powerful. So maybe load in with a chem-light grenade or a regular grenade as well. As for what weapons to bring, I fully recommend using things like the Waster shotgun and the Bully SMG, which you can see here on screen. If you prefer weapons with a little bit more range, things like the Lookout Sniper or the Twin Tap are also incredibly good. Now, as an extension on this, do not bring in anything extra. It is highly likely that you are going to lose a lot of your loot. If you die, you lose it. So do not bring in anything that you are not comfortable with losing, and do not bring in anything extra. If you just have a random third gun in your inventory and it's not really serving any purpose, there's no reason for it to be there. It should be in your vault just in case you die, so you still have some loot to gear up. Now, if you do lose everything on a run, this is where sponsor kits come in. The different factions in the Marathon universe will sponsor your next runs, where the only thing you can bring in are these sponsor kits, but you load in, it'll give you some heals, it'll give you a weapon, maybe a couple pieces of equipment, and it's a great low-risk starting kit because it only costs a couple hundred credits, and then you are pretty much able to use that to start your ascension back up to getting a bunch of great loot. So I highly recommend taking advantage of this system, and you can actually upgrade these sponsor kits so they become better over time. And that leads us into our third point: factions and contracts. Now, this game is probably unlike a lot of games that you have played. In a lot of games, like Destiny, the loot is the end game. You get a gun that you like, you are very satisfied, and you usually have to do something crazy to get it, whether that be PvP or dungeons or raids or whatever. Marathon is really different. The loot isn't the progression system throughout Marathon, or at least not the main one you should be focusing on. It never hurts to get better weapons or better implants or better cores, but what you should really be focusing on is progressing the narrative through the factions. And as you are progressing the narrative of the Marathon world, you will also be leveling up your factions. Leveling up your factions allows you to get access to even more character upgrades. And upgrades are really cool because these are permanent upgrades to your character. No matter how many times you die, the upgrades you unlock will always be unlocked. And in the final game, there will be a couple more progression systems through like cosmetics and secrets and that sort of thing. But in the alpha, you're primarily limited to factions, contracts, and upgrades, which we're going to be going over here. So when you access the faction menu, there will only be a single faction available when you start the alpha. And this will be Cyber Acme, and they will ask you to do a series of priority contracts for them. So the way this works are contracts are little like missions or quests that the different factions give you within Marathon. There are 3 types of contracts: priority, boosted, and standard. The priority contracts are kind of like the main quest line, if you want to think about it like that. These will drive the narrative forward, they will give you the best loot, and they will help you upgrade your factions. Boosted contracts are just kind of like little tidbits that help give you more loot. Standard contracts, you really should only do these if you don't have any priority or boosted contracts to do. They'll give you the least amount of faction reputation, and they don't really do much to drive the story forward. So I recommend always focusing on priority contracts if you have them. You're going to have to start off by doing a series of 3 priority contracts for Cyber Acme, and these are very simple. Things like use your prime ability, loot a couple of chests in this specific area, or even something as simple as just successfully exfil and make it out alive. They're generally pretty simple to do, but when you complete them, they give you an insight into how the world works and help you level up your factions. Once you complete the first 3 Cyber Acme priority contracts, they will allow you to talk to Traxxas and New Caloric as well. You will have these really sick intro cutscenes with these faction vendors.
Attention all runners. Traxxas Offworld Industries is currently seeking candidates for resource extraction on Tau 74.
And then you will unlock new priority contracts to do for them. Once you complete like this initial step, you can start earning a lot of vendor reputation through just stuff you do in a run, killing enemies, opening loot crates, exfilling certain valuables, and this is a great way to get your progression, but a lot of that is like locked behind unlocking these vendors in the first place. So once again, just complete these priority contracts as early as possible, and then once you get the first set done and you get to rank 1 with all the vendors, then you can take your time and really focus on the vendors that you like the most. Now, this system is also very interesting because as you complete these priority contracts, you get reputation for these factions, you progress the story, you also unlock more upgrades. Now, these upgrades are permanent upgrades, as I mentioned, to your character. No matter how many times you die, you will keep them unlocked, and they provide a pretty huge benefit as well. So, for instance, the very first upgrade I would recommend doing is for Cyber Acme. This will increase your vault space by 8 rows, which is absolutely massive, and all you have to do is find 12 microprocessors, and these can be found on the perimeter map, either by going to north or south relay. We're going to get a little bit more into how you know where to find these materials here in a second, but if you just need something to focus on for your first couple of games, I would load in, try to get your contracts done, and go to north or south relay and really try to find these microprocessors. They'll either be like loose loot on the ground or in little orange crates that you find around the area, stuff like that. And honestly, when, interacting with the upgrade system and you're making your way throughout your runs throughout the different maps, perimeter or marsh in this build, I would just focus on getting as many materials as possible because they will really help you focus these upgrades as they become available. Now let's talk about some tips that I have for you while you are in the runs. So the 4th tip for this video, awareness. Everything in this game can give you information or give the enemy teams information in some sort of way. So for instance, the UESC reinforcements, they see you, it's like a sightline or a sound detection that they have. If they start shooting at you, that lets other enemy teams know where you are. There are birds in the environment, and sometimes you will walk across them and you'll scare them and they'll fly up into the sky and make a bunch of noise. That lets people know where you are, or conversely, lets you know where other teams are. There are also some abilities that do this. So for instance, Blackbird, her main ability sends out UAV pulses, but other players can see that. So if you're walking around an area and you start seeing these yellow or blue pulses through the walls, you know there's a Blackbird nearby and they're likely with an entire team trying to hunt you down. Another tip I have is the UESC dropships. So whenever you kill enemies, after a certain amount of time, those enemies will get redeployed and they'll come down in a dropship. So if you're walking around the world and you start seeing dropships a couple POIs away, likely there was another team there, they killed all the UESC forces, and now they're being kind of respawned. And so generally that a team has to be near that area. There is so much information that you can get from just existing in the world, so make sure you're paying attention, looking for dead bodies or dead UESCs. I would also always recommend wearing headphones and really paying attention to how much noise you are making as you are going through your runs. It is important to know there is dynamic weather, so if it's raining or there's like a really heavy storm or anything like that, you're able to get away with quite a bit more. You don't have to play cover as closely. You can, be a little louder because enemies won't be able to hear your footsteps or gunshots from as far away. So that's just important stuff to keep in mind as well. What is happening in the world and how can you use that to your advantage, or how do you limit the amount of information that the other teams have about you? Now for the 5th tip, look at the map. The map also gives you so much information and the game doesn't really tell you this. you can click on the different POIs and it tells you the specific type of loot that has a higher chance to spawn in that location, as well as the materials that spawn in that location. So earlier I was talking about needing certain materials, for instance, microprocessors for upgrading your vault space with Cyber Acme. And so when you land on a map, you can click on the different locations to see where that is more likely to spawn. You can also track these sorts of materials in your vault if you have one. You just hit the M key to mark it. And then when you come across it in the world, that it'll have this little eye icon on it. So you can kind of like remind yourself that you're looking for these. That's pretty helpful as well. Now, I will say this also helps a lot with specific loot. Let's say that you're brand new to the game or you just died and you're really looking for some good weapons. Well, certain locations, such as field maintenance on the map at Dire Marsh, spawn with better weapons or have these weapon crates throughout that just give you a ton of options and a higher chance to get these weapons you were looking for. So pay attention to the actual map itself. The POIs pretty much directly tell you what you are going to find there. In addition, there are all sorts of symbols on the map that can, kind of guide your gameplay depending on the type of loot you are trying to look for, or if you're trying to like go towards or move away from PvP, that sort of thing. So for instance, there's all these question marks on the map. These can be a variety of things. These can be poison rooms, they can be flare rooms, they can be drop ships, that sort of thing. Each of these has way higher quality loot. If you want the best loot in the game, you need to try to track down some of these question marks. But that also means other teams are going to be going to these same areas and trying to get this higher quality loot for themselves. So these kind of indicate areas of the map that are going to be a little bit more dangerous, but a little bit more rewarding. For the sixth tip, I want to talk about consumables. Now, there's some pretty standard consumables. There's patch kits that give you health. There are shield charges, which of course recharge your shield, but there's also a lot of additional consumables and equipment. So for instance, there are a lot of status effects in this game. You can get EMP'd, you can get overheated, you can get poisoned. These can be taken care of through items called mechanics kits. So it's important to have some of these things in your inventory. For instance, like I mentioned, there are poison rooms around that sometimes you will stumble into. They will poison you. This will actually take your health through your shield, so it'll just start killing you straight up. You can out heal this, but as soon as the poison effect is gone, you then have reduced healing for a couple of minutes. So unless you have one of these mechanic kits to remove that debuff, you are going to be incredibly slow at healing yourself, which puts you at a major disadvantage. Sometimes when you're hit from explosive damage through things like grenades, for instance, that will also give you the same effect. So it might be useful to always have a mechanics kit on you that you can very quickly pop and then get rid of that. There's also other things in the game. Cardio kicks give you a ton more speed and a ton more stamina for a short time, which feels so good. Energy amp makes all of your abilities charge a little faster, so that's really important. Let's say you also don't want to go into your inventory and manually use all of these individual healing items. Well, luckily, there are also radio wheels. So if you're on mouse and keyboard, you can hold the 4 button, or if you're on controller, you can hold the left on the D-pad, and it'll bring up a radial menu where you can quickly switch between all of your different healing items. This also works for equipment. There's a ton of great grenades in this game. Smoke grenades, chem-light grenades, which kind of like poison the enemy. They're pretty cool. Regular frag grenades, claymores. If you want to switch between those, hold the right on the D-pad or the 5 key on mouse and keyboard. And then finally, the ping system also has its own radio menu if you want to like show that there's a loot or that you're moving towards a specific location or that you see an enemy. And you can do that by holding up on the D-pad or the ping button on the mouse on mouse and keyboard. And the final thing I want to go over is exfils. Once you spend all this time taking all this risk, getting all of the rewards, all the loot, and you're ready to leave, exfils also can be quite dangerous, but there's a couple different ways you can get out of the map. So when you spawn in, on the map you will see a green arrow, usually across the map from where you are. That is your primary exfil. Every team has one, and they are all different. So no other team is going to be trying to exfil at your exfil. But when you go and activate it, it shoots a giant blue laser up in the sky that lets the entire map know where you are. And it takes a minimum of 55 seconds from this blue laser going up in the sky to get out, because it takes 45 seconds for the exfil to charge. Then there's a 30-second timer until it actually exfils, but if your entire team is within that white circle, that cuts down to 10 seconds. So a minimum of 55 seconds. I recommend being very alert There are going to be teams that try to hunt you down on your exfil because they know you have a ton of good loot and you're trying to get out with it. So just stay on your toes. Now, there are other options to get out as well. On the map, sometimes you will see this yellow skull icon. This is a guarded exfil. When you walk up to it and activate it, it will drop a bunch of UESC robots, and when you kill them, you are able to use the exfil, but only one team can use this one time per match. So it's a really good backup option to have if there's like players around your primary exfil or if you're low on time, but it does carry the extra risk of having to kill those UESC in order to use it. When you load into the match, there will be a 25-minute timer. This is how long you have to use your exfil. If that time runs out, the timer will reset to 3 minutes, all exfils on the map will disappear, and a new one will spawn somewhere random. This exfil will trigger when the time hits 0. So you have to be at that exfil when it hits 0 to get out. All the remaining people on the map are going to be freaking out and trying to fight over this final exfil, so it is going to be very hectic, and I would recommend only ever using this as the worst case scenario because it is very unlikely that anyone survives. So keep all of that in mind. I hope you all found this useful. It was a lot of fun to put together. If you are excited for Marathon and you want more Marathon content, make sure to subscribe down below. If you have any more questions, I'll do my best to answer them down in the comment section, and I will see you on Tau 4. Have a great day.